the most played song in the history of American FM radio. Over $500 million in royalties since 1971. A plagiarism lawsuit that dragged through courts for 5 years. And lyrics written in a single night by a fireplace in a 250-year-old Welsh cottage. This is Stairway to Heaven, and almost everything you think you know about it is either a myth or more complicated than it sounds. November 8, 1971. Led Zeppelin IV is released with no band name on the cover, no album title, no writing credits. For mysterious symbols representing each member, nothing else. The label and the press hated it. Atlantic Records begged them to put the band name on the cover. Led Zeppelin refused. The album went on to sell over 37 million copies worldwide. Stairway to Heaven was never released as a single. Not once. Yet it became the most played song in American FM radio history, racking up an estimated 2,874,000 broadcasts over the following decades. Jimmy Page began working on the song in December 1970 after returning from a U.S. tour. He installed an 8-track studio in his own boathouse and spent months developing different guitar sections alone. The song was finished at Headley Grange, a crumbling old manor house in Hampshire that the band used as a rehearsal space. Robert Plant wrote the entire lyric in a single night, sitting by a fireplace, barely lifting his pen. He described the experience years later as the words seeming to write themselves. Page later said that after hearing what Plant had written, he felt those were the best lyrics Plant had ever produced and made Plant write all of Led Zeppelin's lyrics from that point forward. For years, the official story was that the song was born at Bron-yr-Aur, a 250-year-old remote cottage in the mountains of Wales, with no electricity, where Page and Plant had retreated for inspiration. Page told that story in interview after interview. It was one of rock music's most beloved origin myths. Then, in 2016, Jimmy Page took the stand in a federal courtroom in Los Angeles and told a different story under oath. He stated he wrote the music entirely on his own at Headley Grange, not at Bron-yr-Aur. The mystical Welsh cottage origin story, told for 45 years, was dismantled in a courtroom. The lawsuit itself had been running since 2014. The estate of Randy California, guitarist of the American psychedelic rock band Spirit, claimed that Page had stolen the opening guitar riff from a Spirit instrumental called Taurus, recorded 3 years before Stairway to Heaven. Led Zeppelin had actually performed on the same bill as Spirit in 1970. They had met the band members. They had played snooker together at a pub. The jury found that while Page and Plant did have access to Taurus before writing Stairway, the songs were not substantially similar. The case was dismissed. But by the time the verdict came, Stairway to Heaven had earned over $562 million in royalties, with an additional $3.4 million accumulated during the 5 years of legal proceedings alone. Then there are the backward messages. In the early 1980s, a televangelist claimed that if you played the song in reverse, you could hear satanic phrases being whispered into the track. The theory spread globally. Politicians demanded congressional hearings. Robert Plant responded in a music magazine, saying the idea was absolutely ridiculous, and that he walked around in a daze for an entire day after first hearing about it. He added that whoever came up with that idea clearly had too much time on their hands. Jimmy Page, who had a well-documented obsession with occultist Aleister Crowley and had actually purchased Crowley's old house in Scotland, never publicly denied it quite as forcefully, which naturally made the rumors worse. Stairway to Heaven sells between 10,000 and 15,000 copies of its sheet music every single year, more than any other rock song in history. Over 1 million total copies sold since 1971. In 1992, the film Wayne's World showed a guitar shop with a sign that read, "No Stairway to Heaven," a joke based on the real practice of British music shops in the 1970s banning staff and customers from playing the intro because they were so exhausted from hearing it all day. The song Robert Plant wrote in one night by a fireplace that was never released as a single, that had its origin story dismantled under oath, and that spent decades being accused of containing hidden satanic messages, is still the most played rock song in the history of American radio.